There are many kinds of love in the world: love between friends, love between strangers, love between husband and wife. But there is no love stronger, deeper, and more fearless than the love of a mother. This story is about a mother whose love changed everything, even fate. In a small town, surrounded by green fields and peaceful silence, lived a woman named Amina and her only son Ion. Amina was a widow. Her husband died when Ion was just 3 years old. She worked day and night sewing clothes for the people in the village. Some paid her fairly, some paid very little, and some didn't pay at all, but she never complained. She always said one thing with a smile: "As long as I can feed my son, I have everything." Ion grew up watching his mother struggle, waking up before sunrise, skipping meals, and sacrificing her comfort just to provide for him. But as he grew older, things began to change. When Ion turned 16, he started feeling ashamed of their poor life. His friends had better clothes, expensive phones, and new bicycles. Ion had none of that. One day, after coming home from school, he threw his bag angrily and said, "Why are we so poor? Why can't I have the things everyone else has?" Amina stopped sewing and looked at him gently. "We don't have much, Beta, but we have each other, and that is enough." But Ion didn't feel comforted. His heart was filled with frustration, jealousy, and anger. Amina understood, but the pain inside. Her heart was sharp, yet she didn't cry. She simply placed her hand on his head and whispered a silent prayer: "Allah, guide my son and protect his heart." Years passed. Ion finished school and decided to study in the city. Amina sold her jewelry, the only thing her husband left behind, so she could pay for his admission and hostel. When the day came for him to leave, Amina packed his clothes, made his favorite food, and slipped money into his pocket. Ion hugged her quickly, not tightly, just enough to say goodbye. But Amina hugged him like he was her whole world. She whispered, "No matter how far you go, Beta, this house, this heart, it will always be your home." Ion nodded, but in his heart, he was eager to escape poverty. He wanted a new life, a better life. City life was fast, loud, and full of opportunities. Ion made new friends, rich friends. At first, he remembered his mother. He called her every night, shared stories, and promised to return. But slowly, the calls became shorter, then less frequent. Soon, he stopped calling. Amina waited every evening near the old wooden phone placed beside the wall. Sometimes she held it in her hands. Sometimes she stared at it, just waiting for it to ring. But it didn't. Still, she smiled and said to herself, "Maybe he is busy. Maybe he is happy. That is enough." But inside her chest, silence felt heavier than loneliness. Years later, Ion graduated and got a high-paying job. His lifestyle changed completely: expensive clothes, fancy car, luxury apartment. One day, a coworker asked, "Your parents must be proud of you." Ion hesitated, then replied quietly, "I only have a mother." But he didn't tell them the truth, that she still lived in a small house with leaking ceilings and broken furniture. He never invited her. He never visited her. To him, she represented the life he wanted to forget. Back in the village, Amina grew weaker with age. Her eyesight faded, her hands shook. Yet she still sewed, saving every coin because she believed. She kept his room clean. She placed fresh flowers near his old trophies. She cooked his favorite food every Eid, hoping he might walk through the door. He never did, but she never stopped believing. She never stopped praying. One night, heavy rain crashed over the village. Lightning lit up the sky. The wind howled like a desperate cry. Amina's roof began to leak. Water soaked her bed, her clothes, her carpet. Still, she sat on her prayer mat, whispering, "Yah, protect my son wherever he is." While she prayed for him, Ion was at a grand party, laughing, celebrating his promotion. But suddenly he felt something, a strange discomfort, a tightening in his chest. A voice deep inside whispered, "Call your mother." He ignored it. Music was loud, friends were around, but the feeling grew stronger. So finally, he stepped outside, pulled out his phone, and dialed her number. It rang, and rang, and rang, but she didn't pick up. The next morning, Ion called again. Still no answer. Worry began to crawl into his thoughts. Then hours later, someone else answered, a neighbor. Her voice trembled. "Beta, your mother is sick. She fainted last night. She is in the village clinic." Ion froze. The world around him stopped. He grabbed his keys, rushed to his car, and drove faster than he ever had in his life. When he reached the village, everything felt smaller than he remembered. He ran to the clinic, and there, lying on a thin bed with oxygen tubes, was Amina. Her face looked fragile, her hands looked tired, but the moment she opened her eyes and saw him, she smiled. A weak, soft, beautiful smile. She lifted her hand to touch his cheek, and whispered, "My son, you came." Ion couldn't speak. Tears rolled down his face. His voice broke as he said, "Amy, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." She wiped his tears with unsteady fingers. And in a voice full of unconditional love, she said, "A mother never counts the distance, Beta, only the return." Ion stayed by her side all night, holding her hand, watching her breathe. He realized something painful. He had everything, money, success, respect, but without his mother, he had nothing. The woman who sacrificed everything for him. He had abandoned her, but she still loved him, without anger, without blame. Just loved up, pure, selfless love. The kind only a mother can give. When Ion brought his mother home from the clinic, the evening sky was quiet. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. The village felt different, or maybe Ion had changed. Amina walked slowly into the house, holding her son's arm for support. The house smelled the same old, simple, full of memories. For a moment, she closed her eyes and whispered, "Ya, thank you for bringing my son home." Ion watched her with guilt and love mixed together. He wished he could erase the years he spent away from her, but time never returns. Still, he promised himself one thing: if time can't return, then love will replace it. That night, Ion cooked dinner, not perfectly, but with love. The rice was too soft, the curry too salty, and the roti looked more like uneven patches than round bread, but Amina ate everything happily. Every bite, every mistake, every flavor, because for her, it wasn't food, it was love. She looked at him with soft eyes and said, "Beta, when you were a baby, I fed you with my hands. Today, Allah has given me the same gift but reversed." Ion couldn't respond. Tears fell silently. Sometimes love doesn't need words, just presence. The next morning, Ion woke up early. He looked around the house, broken shelves, cracked walls, leaking ceiling, signs of years of struggle. He rolled up his sleeves and started fixing the home. Hammering, painting, repairing. Not because the house needed it, but because his mother deserved it. Neighbors watched from afar. Some were shocked to see Ion, the boy who once rejected this poor life, now repairing it with his own hands. But one elderly neighbor smiled and said, "A son may forget his home, but a mother's love always calls him back." Amina sat by the window wrapped in her shawl, watching him. She didn't speak. She didn't interrupt. She just smiled, the kind of smile only a mother can wear, full of pride, forgiveness, and peace. Days passed, and Amina grew slightly stronger, not because of medicine, but because her heart finally rested. One evening, Ion took her to the mosque courtyard. They sat quietly as the call for prayer echoed in the sky. After praying, Amina lifted her hands and whispered, "Ya Allah, you returned my son to me. Bless him, protect him, and never let his heart turn hard again." Ion closed his eyes. He realized something. She never prayed for herself. She always prayed for him. Even when he hurt her, even when he left her, even when he forgot her. Her love never changed, only waited. But life is fragile, soft like a leaf, uncertain, like the wind. One morning, Ion noticed Amina struggling to breathe. Her steps were slower, her hands colder. He took her back to the doctor. After checking her, the doctor placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "She's tired. Her body is aging faster than we can heal." Ion's heart shook. He whispered, "How much time does she have?" The doctor didn't answer directly. He simply said, "Love her. Be with her. That's what matters now." That night, the moonlight fell softly across the small room. Amina rested on her bed while Ion sat beside her. Gently massaging her hands, she looked at him and smiled, a tired but peaceful smile. "Ion, you came back. That is enough for my heart." Tears gathered in his eyes. "Amy, I'm sorry for everything." She shook her head weakly. A mother does not count mistakes. She only counts moments. He held her hand tightly. Silence filled the room. But it wasn't empty, it was full of memories, full of love, full of understanding. As the night grew deeper, Amina whispered softly, "La ilaha illallah." Her voice faded, her hand loosened, her breathing slowed, and then stopped. Ion leaned forward and kissed her forehead with shaking lips. His voice broke. "Goodbye, Amy, and thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it." The next day, Ion buried her beside his father. He placed fresh white flowers on her grave and whispered, "I will live the way you prayed." From that day forward, Ion changed. He stayed in the village. He helped the poor. He visited lonely mothers. He understood the meaning of life not in wealth, not in status, but in love, gratitude, and family.